Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. I'm Levent Besic, VP of Product here at Microsoft Entra. Before we jump into today's topic, a quick reminder that this webinar is part of our Microsoft Entra Access Priorities series. If you would like to watch any of the sessions on demand, every webinar will be recorded and available on demand at the link on this slide. For the sessions coming up next, we hope you will join us live. Use the RSVP link to save your spot and bring your questions, please. Our product experts answer questions live in the chat. And if you're watching this session live right now, excellent. Feel free to ask questions at any time. Our team is here and ready to help. All right, for today's session, we're focusing on how you can build a strong unified access foundation across your entire environment. I will start by framing why organizations need a new approach to securing access. Identity alone is not enough anymore. The way people work, the rise of AI agents, and the spread of apps across cloud and on-prem environments have changed and created gaps in how access is monitored and enforced. I will walk through what we are hearing from our customers, what has changed in the threat landscape, and why identity and network access now need to work as one.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rahul Prakash, a group product manager on the Microsoft Entra team. After Levent sets the stage, I'll walk you through the practical side of how you can get started. Customers often ask us, what should I do first? I'll break it down into the first steps that you can take to create a unified access foundation using the tools that you already have. Things like strengthening authentication, enforcing conditional access everywhere, and blocking identity takeover in real time. These are high-impact, go-do actions that help you move from often fragmented controls to a consistent modern access strategy.
Excellent. So with that, let's jump into our first topic. When you look at this diagram, it reflects the reality our customers live in today. Everything is connected. People work from anywhere, apps live across cloud and on-prem environments, devices range from fully managed to completely unknown. And now AI agents and automation tools make their own access decisions and move at light speed across your digital estate. The result is a world that is incredibly dynamic and incredibly complex. Access is no longer a straight line from a user to an app. It moves across networks, devices, browsers, and APIs, and services that do not always flow through traditional identity paths. In such a world, how do we make sure only the right people and non-humans get right access? Historically, the identity fabric has been the foundation here. Identity fabric is layers of security and governance for each type of identity, working together to protect the business. Like a lattice, you have authentication, authorization, privilege access, identity governance, all coming together for workforce and then external customers and partners, and also for machine identities. And this, of course, also includes across cloud and on-prem identities as well. These are all core to securing your business and establishes a strong foundation for zero trust. The reality is that identity alone is not enough anymore. The old idea of a protected moat and castle does not match the world we live in. Devices, applications, people, and now AI agents are scattered across the internet. Some of it is in your control, but unfortunately, a lot of it is not. Artificial intelligence is rapidly changing how both the attackers and the employees operate. And identities and endpoints are growing across human users, machines, and agents. With more than 300 billion passwords already in circulation, every new device, every new user, or every new AI agent adds complexity and expands the attack surface. This explosion is not just a statistic, it represents a fundamental shift in how organizations must approach access security. Modern identity fabrics are already complex, and now we're layering AI agents on top of that. It is easy to miss steps and lose the bigger picture here. That's unfortunately what's happening with many of our customers that we talk to. They increasingly realize that they have a gap in their access controls. We know visibility is a key piece of the identity fabric. However, often there's a missing connection between what you can see and what's actually happening in real time. For instance, an employee identity that you see and monitor across work apps and resources that they sign into, there may be other things that they're doing on the network that is not monitored in your identity system or not perhaps visible at all. And the reality is you can't enforce a policy on something you just can't see. So Rahul, let's take a moment to be honest about where most organizations are today. For years, we built strong identity foundations and assumed that was enough. Basically, you authenticate the user, check a few conditions, and move on. But the world has changed. With the rise of threat complexity, insider threats, app sprawl, and all, and attackers no longer move slowly or predictably.
Totally. And to add to that, with AI now in the mix, the pace has completely shifted. On one hand, attackers are using AI to craft better phishing, automate credential theft, and scan for weak endpoints faster than ever. On the other side, organizations are starting to rely on AI agents and access data and trigger workflows on behalf of users. That introduces new behaviors and access patterns the old toolset just wasn't designed to understand.
Exactly. So the traditional sign in once and assume everything is fine model just cannot keep up. We really need to go beyond identity foundation to get this right.
Yeah, organizations need a way to tie all this together. Identity, the network activity, the behavior during the session, and the new AI-driven patterns. Something that gives them continuous awareness, not just a snapshot during sign-in.
And that is exactly what we're going to go into next. There's a better way to approach access in today's environment, and we'll walk through what that looks like. So how do we protect identities and access if there are gaps? How do you manage apps and resources that are not yet using single sign-on, for instance? At Microsoft Ignite earlier this year, we introduced this concept of the Access Fabric. Think of Access Fabric like a real-time dynamic safety net. Identity establishes who or what should have access and permissions, while network access continuously validates trust and security of the session based on the identity signals. We believe this Access Fabric will be the foundation for security in the new AI era. To protect an environment that is distributed and dynamic, access security must extend beyond identity to the network layer, where users, devices, apps, and AI agents interact constantly. The Access Fabric brings all these pieces together, so trust is evaluated throughout the entire session, not just at the front door of resources. This approach is essential not only to secure AI, but also to stay productive with it. AI agents now pull data, trigger workflows, and operate at speeds humans just cannot. At the same time, attackers use AI to move faster and hide better. By adding in network access signals from modern network tools into your identity policy engine, you can now have more control across all types of identities and their access. It builds on the identity fabric and unifies your set of policies and increases visibility. And there are many places that context is crucial. It comes to play in stopping account takeover attacks, detecting and mitigating insider threats, securing remote and hybrid work, and protecting and responding to AI-driven attacks. Let's take a look at an example. Attacks are getting more and more complex, but often the pattern is very similar. An attacker sneaks in, tries to blend in with normal activity, and then moves towards sensitive data before anyone notices. It usually starts with a stolen credential, often with social engineering, then quiet lateral movement, and then privilege escalation, leading to finally data exfiltration. And because the credentials look valid, the system trusts the entire session unless something catches the risk in real time. A common example is the help desk scam. The attacker impersonates an employee to your support personnel or process, convinces an employee to share an authentication code, and then drops malware or pivots deeper into the environment. Nothing looks suspicious until it is too late because the initial sign-in looks legitimate. So the real question becomes, how do you stop this during the session instead of after the damage is done? How do you see risky behavior early in the process and shut it down before the attacker reaches anything valuable? Let me walk you through the 5 pillars that explain how Access Fabric can detect these patterns in real time and prevent these attacks from becoming a full breach. First, integrating identity and network controls. At the heart of access management is connecting users to the apps and the data that they need. But many times we've seen organizations have different teams configuring different adaptive access policies and different security solutions to enforce them. The policies either conflict or leave gaps, and the teams don't always coordinate well with each other. This may leave some access points less protected than others. However, with a single policy framework with an access fabric, security teams or the CISO don't have to choose one policy engine over the other. When the signals are unified, lateral movement patterns, unusual destinations, or unexpected resource access show up immediately. This lets you stop the attacker inside the environment before you escalate or spread. Second is context. These are all different contextual elements that can feed into the access intelligence. You may get a data protection score, API interaction score, IAM context, agentic AI context, context from Office 365 activity and other productivity tools, and from your Secure Access Server Edge tool. And on the left, you can get context based on the behavioral intent of something within your corporate network. It could look a little suspicious and subsequently provide context about the risk level of an access attempt or active session. All of these inputs into a unified access fabric inform the access intelligence and risk scores, which can then adapt access dynamically. Third, Access Fabric helps coordinate signals. Let's go deeper on the left side of this access framework. These are all the access points and the signals related to them. You have users, workload, agents, network, and endpoints that could be accessing something. Not only are users and roles important, but so are apps and data, location, the risk signals, compliant devices, and compliant network checks. All of these signals are taken into account when access is being evaluated to help you make correlated decisions as part of an access fabric. Fourth, the access fabric continuously verifies trust. Once you bring policies, context, and signals together, you can evaluate risk throughout the entire session and automate decisions as conditions change. If something shifts, like a new location or device posture, the system evaluates it instantly and takes action on the active session without waiting for identity or SecOps teams. This applies everywhere, not just to the apps using single sign-on today. It covers web traffic, legacy on-prem systems, shadow IT, and even cloud apps that are not yet integrated. The goal here is really simple. Access is not a one-time decision at sign-in. It is evaluated constantly, so risks are caught the moment they appear. And finally, Access Fabric converges enforcement points. With an Access Fabric, you can converge enforcement points and decisions on whether to allow, require reauth, block, or restrict access. So if you have a policy that blocks all high-risk users, for instance, it can apply to your on-prem or cloud apps, infrastructure, and AI agents. You get consistency in your policies and a more secure environment as a result. So to sum up what we just talked about so far, Access Fabric is your safety net. It can capture all the traffic to and from your access points and bring them together. Unified policies with risk-based continuous monitoring lets you dynamically adjust access and enable you to take action to verify identities if there's anomalies. And context matters. You need as much visibility as possible and helps minimize closure gaps. All right, before we go further, we know many organizations ask the same question. Where do we actually start? It can feel overwhelming with all of these different signals, tools, access points that you're trying to manage. The good news is that you do not need to fix everything at once. There are a few foundational steps every organization should put in place first. So Rahul, these are the steps that strengthen your access posture quickly and create a strong baseline you can build on, right?
Exactly. Think of these as the must-dos that immediately create a strong access foundation. They help close the most common gaps and set you up for everything that comes next in the series. So let's walk through the top 3 things that your organization should have today for a stronger access foundation. Now let's talk about the first foundational step in building a unified access foundation. What we outline here are the 3 moves every organization should have in place today. First, deploy a strong phishing-resistant authentication for all users. Second, enforce conditional access policies across every app and every resource. And third, block identity takeover in real time with identity protection. Together, these steps raise your security floor, close the gaps attackers rely on, and give you a unified baseline you can build on. They're simple, high-impact actions that help you move from reactive identity work to a more modern access strategy. Now let's look at the first pillar in a bit more detail, deploying strong phishing-resistant authentication for all users. Passwords and basic MFA just aren't enough anymore, and attackers know exactly how to exploit those gaps. By moving users to strong phishing-resistant authentication, you can dramatically reduce your exposure to credential-based attacks. In fact, strong authentication is the quickest way to stop identity attacks before they start. Passwords alone are simply too easy to steal, and even basic MFA can be bypassed with today's phishing techniques. By moving every user to stronger methods, whether that's Authenticator, passkeys, Windows Hello, or FIDO2 keys, you help make it significantly harder for attackers to get in. These phishing-resistant options give you a much higher level of security without adding friction to your users. This shift is one of the most impactful things you can do to protect access and is the foundation for everything we build next. Building on that, passkeys are a key part of enforcing strong phishing-resistant authentication across your organization. Passkeys replace passwords entirely, giving users a way to sign in that's easier, faster, and far more secure. From a user's perspective, it feels completely simple. They sign in using their face, fingerprint, or a device PIN. But behind the scenes, passkeys are built on FIDO standards and use public key cryptography, which provides strong phishing-resistant authentication. Another key benefit is interoperability. Because passkeys follow FIDO standards, they can work across different operating systems. So with passkeys, you get security that's dramatically stronger and a sign-in experience that's even easier than what people are used to today. In fact, last year we introduced device-bound passkeys in the Authenticator app to help organizations reduce the complexity and operational costs of MFA while adopting this stronger phishing-resistant credentials. And now with synced passkey support in Microsoft Entra ID, we're making passwordless even easier through a cross-device phishing-resistant credential that's simple to recover and works seamlessly across providers like iCloud Keychain and Google Password Manager. Now, you might be wondering, what happens if someone loses access to a passkey? To address that, we're integrating identity proofing and verified ID directly into the passkey lifecycle, so recovery and step-up challenges are secure and seamless. Instead of stitching together separate checks, this brings face verification, employee photo matching, and even government ID validation right into conditional access and the credential lifecycle. This lets you bind a digital Entra ID to a real verified identity at any point in the credentials lifecycle. And with dark web checks built right in, if a passport or ID is stolen and shows up online, we can stop that in the verification process. Now let's move on to the second pillar. Enforce conditional access policies for all apps and resources across your environment. As Levent mentioned earlier, identity alone just isn't enough. You also need policies that evaluate context and enforce access decisions in real time. That's exactly where conditional access and the Access Fabric come together. Microsoft Entra Conditional Access is Microsoft's Zero Trust policy engine, and it delivers three key benefits. First, it enforces adaptive access controls, so you can require multi-factor authentication when users access sensitive resources from outside the network. Second, it protects data inside applications by monitoring sessions and applying controls in real time, whether those apps are on-prem or in the cloud. And third, it restricts access from vulnerable or compromised devices, ensuring that only healthy and trusted devices are allowed to connect. And not only that, we also provide powerful tools to help you test, refine, and manage your conditional access policies with ease. Report-only mode lets you simulate a policy without enforcing it, so you can see how it behaves in real-world sign-ins without affecting users. The What If tool gives you a policy sandbox where you can enter a user, location, and device to instantly see which policies would apply and in which scenarios. And each policy includes a clear impact graph that shows how sign-ins were affected, making it easy to troubleshoot and adjust. Together, these tools make conditional access not just powerful, but predictable, so you can strengthen security without disrupting productivity. Now that we've covered how conditional access helps you enforce consistent real-time access decisions, let's move to the third pillar, blocking identity takeover in real time. Even with strong authentication and adaptive access policies in place, attackers still look for ways to slip through. So we need protection that can detect risky behavior the moment it happens and remediate that in real time. Microsoft Entra ID Protection helps you block identity takeover in real time with advanced detections, real-time access policies, and high-assurance authentication powered by machine learning. It analyzes trillions of signals to spot anomalies and risky behaviors, drawing from three sources: machine-generated detections, our security researchers and human analysts, and feedback from end users. These signals feed our risk evaluation engine, which identifies risky users, risky sign-ins, risky workload identities, and even risky agents. With that insight, you can enforce dynamic, risk-based conditional access policies that block bad actors while allowing legitimate users to safely remediate. Entra ID Protection also gives you powerful investigation tools and integrates with Microsoft Sentinel, Microsoft 365 Defender, and third-party SIEMs, so you can respond quickly and strengthen your overall security posture. Identity is at the entry point for almost every modern attack. As identity admins, we're on the front line. We manage access, enforce policies, keep authentication healthy. But even the strongest hygiene can't stop everything. Attackers are getting faster, more automated, and more creative, especially in how they exploit compromised identities. This is where ITDR, through Entra ID protection, becomes essential. It gives identity teams real-time visibility into risky users, tokens, sessions, and workload identities. Instead of waiting for a breach to surface somewhere else in the environment, we can detect identity-based attacks at the source and act before they escalate. And we're not doing this alone. ITDR works best when identity teams and SOC teams operate as one motion. SOC analysts bring threat expertise. Identity admins bring deep knowledge of how access really works in the environment. With ITDR with Microsoft, both teams get a shared view of identity risk, clear signals, and automated response. With Microsoft, you get end-to-end identity threat detection and response that can spot risky behavior early, block identity takeover in real time, and give you the investigation tools needed to respond quickly. And that completes our journey with taking these 3 foundational steps: deploying strong phishing-resistant authentication, enforcing conditional access across every app and resource, and blocking identity takeover in real time. And with those in place, the best way to take a next step is to prepare a zero trust workshop that helps you turn this foundation into a long-term roadmap. A zero trust strategy is only effective when it is backed by a clear plan, and a zero trust workshop is one of the fastest ways to build that. It starts with running the zero trust assessment to establish our baseline. Then we move through the workshop modules together, beginning with identity and expanding to devices and data based on your priorities. And finally, you walk away with a custom roadmap that outlines exactly what to focus on next, turning zero trust from an idea into an actionable plan you can start implementing right away. With that, I will hand it back to Levent to tell us more about the Access Fabric.
Excellent. Thanks, Rahul. Now that we have walked through the foundation, let's bring it all together with a quick recap of what we call the Access Fabric. At its core, the Access Fabric connects identity and network access into a single, unified policy engine. It brings together signals from identity, device posture, and the network, so access decisions are informed by real context instead of static rules. With this approach, verification is continuous. Risk is evaluated throughout the entire session, not only at sign-in. And if something changes, the policy engine can react in real time and automatically take action to protect the organization. Instead of a separate enforcement point across apps, endpoints, and a network, everything works together so you get the same policy application everywhere. And it is contextual. Every decision is informed by richer signals about who and what it is accessing a resource, the state of the device, the behavior of the session, and the network conditions. It's connected, continuous, and contextual. That is the value of an Access Fabric, and it is what gives organizations a stronger safety net for the AI era. Before we close, I want to point you to a few resources that can help you go deeper. You can explore everything new in Microsoft Entra and read Joy's 2026 priorities for the year. These are great starting points if you want to accelerate your access strategy or modernize your environment. And as a reminder, this is just the first webinar out of our 4-part series. Catch the next session with deep dives into how you can secure your workforce with the Microsoft Entra Suite next Tuesday, February 17th. And as always, these webinars will be available on demand after airing. On behalf of Rahul and myself, thank you for joining us today.